Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. He is the Chief Challenge Officer at Triumfit, Mr. Tyler Smith. How you doing today, Tyler?
Doing good. Nice and sunny day out in Tacoma, Washington. So we live for those days out here because it's not always the most common for sure.
That's funny. So the number one question the audience probably wondering, who is Tyler Smith?
Ooh, great question. The story of who Tyler Smith is. I think in a lot of ways we are what we tell ourselves we are, and I try to hold to that mindset of positive thinking and not just thinking about where you've been, but where you want to go as well. But in terms of the backstory of how I got to microphone sitting talking to you today, Ryan, is I was a beach kid, born and raised in Santa Monica, California. And I think some of the big things that shaped me was athletics and sports for sure. And a big part of that, weird as it sounds, was ice hockey. It started with roller hockey and then transitioned to ice hockey when I was about 9. Played travel all throughout my youth and all that. And then had a short stint of wrestling in high school as well, freshman and sophomore year for a team for the sport that I had to do in high school. But I like that, duality of an individual sport with wrestling and team sport with hockey. So I think getting both of those kind of made me more of a well-rounded individual. And then I went on to pursue a doctorate of physical therapy from San Diego State, kind of through a long path of injury through sports and through ice hockey and wanting to learn how to rehab the body in physical therapy, which I do today in Camp Murray, Washington, for the Air National Guard as the lead physical therapist with a team, part of the HPO team, so Human Performance Optimization. So that's my day job. And then the passion project, and I think why we're talking today, is about Triumfit Challenge, the thing that I've been starting since about 2024, which again has been, leading me through this whole journey of fitness, philanthropy, ways to give back, and ways to make fitness more meaningful than just individual metrics that I'd like to check off a bucket list, but how I can make it a community event grounded in some longer legacy that's going to outlive me at some point. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. Man, there probably isn't too many people playing ice hockey in Santa Monica, California, is there?
100%. That's very rare. I'd say it's growing a bit now. The Kings have had some success. The Ducks have won a cup 2007. Kings won a cup 2012 and 2014. But the way I got into it is my background. So my dad is black, my mom is white, and my dad went to an LA Blades, a semi-professional game when he was, 11, 12, something like that. And there was a player, Willie O'Ree, and he ended up being essentially the Jackie Robinson. He was a Canadian individual, but the first Canadian black player to break the color barrier in the NHL, in the National Hockey League. And so he went to a game at a very impressionable age when he was 11, 12, saw Willie O'Ree play, and then the LA Kings got a franchise in 1967 when my dad was maybe 16. And so then he kind of grew up very late, kind of taking a liking to hockey, and he was a firefighter. So on his off days, he would, learn how to skate and did adult hockey in Culver City at the right ice rink there that is now no longer there, sadly. But and so then when he had two boys, my older brother and myself, I wanted to do everything my brother wanted to do. We were very competitive growing up. So he gravitated to hockey. I went into hockey as well, and then just kind of loved it, transitioned to ice, and just went through, 20 years essentially. I finally hung him up when I was 26, roughly, in grad school at San Diego State in club hockey. So long career.
That's a great story. I actually used to work at the Columbus Blue Jackets Stadium, so I got to
Ooh,
see firsthand how
that's
great
amazing.
athletes hockey players are. I was just amazed by. I used to tell people, I'm like, man, those are some of the best athletes to be on skates, and then just the stick work to
Oh
handle
yeah.
pucks.
I think it's incredible the level of dexterity, athleticism you have to have again, because there's a lot of different things coming at you. There's, the physicality of the sport as well. So it's like rugby or like lacrosse, but you're on ice and you've got, a deadly weapon, two deadly weapons on your feet at any
Yeah,
given moment. I think there's been 3 or 4 hockey players that have gotten, skates to the neck and stuff like that, and maybe at least one fatality. I think it was in Europe actually, like a couple, 2, 3 years ago. But so there's the whole factor of, the danger aspect and the speed and the physicality and skill that it takes to even just be out there on the ice. So I think it is a underappreciated sport, and one that I was very thankful to, all things considered, get away with just really shoulder issues and dislocations and ultimately surgeries, but no lasting concussions or anything like that, which has really still affected me. So all things considered, very fortunate to have the career that I did in such a violent sport.
Awesome. So you mentioned you wrestled. What was your favorite part about wrestling, and what is the most important thing it taught you?
I learned a lot from wrestling. The thing that I do like about wrestling, and now that I'm an adult, I do some jujitsu as well. Actually, just had a tournament 2 days ago, but is the one-on-one nature of it, the mano y mano. Everything you put into it is what you get out, and you can't really rest on a teammate's success, or for better or worse, a teammate is either supporting you or dropping the ball at a given moment can really kind of frustrate you in a lot of those team sports. So the idea of wrestling just being one, two men enter and there's going to be one champion, right? I think it's a very primal thing. I think going back to, Indian culture and Greek culture, a lot of these different, civilizations were founded on combat and things like that because they had to. And so there is a long tradition of these types of disciplines and physical, skill sets that people can acquire. So I really appreciated the aspect of that, just going at it, kind of like two rams butting their heads in the wild, and just seeing, who the better man on that day is. So I've learned a lot of my, like I was saying, mental toughness from that sport because, you're in constant tension with another individual that's your same rough weight and, muscularity. So everything you do, whether it's isometric contractions, just pushing and no one's moving or anything, it's hard to see, all the strength that goes into it because a lot of times it's just a stalemate. But in every single moment there's a muscle contraction of some kind, and you're setting up shots and you're trying to find their patterns of when they're gonna sprawl or where their openings are. So it's an interesting like chess match, a physical chess match. And I've done some adult wrestling here at a local gym. So fortunately, it's not nearly as disciplined as high school in terms of I would have PTSD essentially of getting onto the mat, and we had a coach that was an ex-marine, so he would find different ways to torture us in practice. So some of the hardest workouts by far, and I played a lot of sports, have been on the wrestling mat. So very thankful for the things that I've been able to do, maybe because of it, such as like an Ironman triathlon and these things that seem extremely difficult on the outside, but when you've been through, somewhat of a not high level because it was high school really, but wrestling in, a certain stage of development, I think a lot of things become easier in perspective. So I'm very thankful for that.
What type of mindset did it take for you to finish an Ironman competition?
Yeah, that was a long day. That was 12 hours of cardio. 12 hours and 4 minutes was my final time, and it was in Cozumel, Mexico. So it's very humid. It's like Florida or worse, right? So you're just kind of learning to embrace the suck, as they say in a lot of military cultures, for quite a long time. And I didn't have much of a swim background, so that was a skill set I had to develop over 8 or so months of training for it. But I would say what I learned and what it takes, I guess, to finish an Ironman again is like all things that lead to success is determination, grit, a passion. I think a large part of getting through life is just being passionate about what you're doing, because there's going to be hard moments where you're going to want to throw in the towel and quit. I remember the first 30 seconds of the race in Cozumel. This is in 2021. I jumped into the water and everybody is kicking. It's like you're in a washing machine. There's just body parts, hands and feet kicking your goggles off. And it's like, what is happening? I had like a mini panic attack of like, I don't know if I could swim 2.5 miles right now. It doesn't seem like a great idea. So, and then you get nauseous from the waves and everything. So there's just a lot of doubt that kind of creeps into your mind of like what you're actually doing, and then you kind of have this like out of body moment. But there's very seldom feelings, I think, on this planet that exceed that Iron Man final red carpet moment when they say, Tyler Smith, you are an Iron Man. And it's the same voice for every individual, but it's just all the passion of going into that year and training, and everyone that was there that had to dedicate their life to the same thing. I think it's a very special moment, and I was very fortunate for all the things that could have went wrong. It was not too long after COVID and all these other X factors outside of your control with an international race. But to hear that final phrase and to relive that moment of hearing somebody call you an Ironman, I think is a special moment that I wish everyone on this planet could experience in some capacity, whatever that is for them. It doesn't have to be a physical race, but it could be starting a business. It could be anything that's supremely hard endeavor that is going to cost a certain amount of life energy to do, but that's something that you see through in the end. I think is why we're here and what makes life meaningful. Because if it's supremely easy, then there's really no benefit at the end of the day to doing it. So
I love how you said that. It's like the harder it is, the
yeah.
more it's gonna bring out more passion, and it's gonna be worth it in the end.
Hmm.
So, what was your biggest challenge you faced when training for your Ironman?
Yeah, I think time commitment is always a big one. I'm a big fan of this fitness influencer, whatever you want to call him, Nick Bear Performance Nutrition, and he has a phrase: "If it matters, you'll make time for it." Right, and so whether that's waking up earlier to hit the track or the swimming pool, or get on your bike trainer in the gym, home gym, whatever it is, the pain cave, right? So I think the challenge is overcoming yourself and the excuses that we all conjure up when we wake up and hit that alarm clock, and it's got a day of work ahead of you, but you have to squeeze in that workout, that run before work, or else it's not going to get done, right? It's not going to be 8 p.m. You're going to get home from a long day of work and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to go work out. No, it's like you should have done that, at 6 in the morning if you wanted to really get it done. So I think the challenge is always really about fighting the internal battle. Ultimately, it's so time commitment's a big one, but I would say, learning to overcome, the inner bitch, as Joe Rogan would call it, when before he gets into the cold plunge, he has to fight with himself. So I have a tattoo on my back, a Lao Tzu quote about that, about he who conquers others is strong, he who conquers himself is mighty. And I think that's just been a powerful, mantra for myself and all through, I got it in college. And as a way to remember, ultimately everything is you versus you. You can line up on the same start line as whatever 1,000 other individuals at a triathlon, but because of their genetic lineage and their time commitment and their finances and all these things that go into it, that starting gun is going to go off, and there's 1,800 different stories, 1,800 different athletes that have different reasons and different whys for completing this challenge. And it's ultimately you versus you, and who did you become in the process to get to this place. And I think that's what's most exciting to me about entering races and doing these things, is it's not always the finishing time. I think a lot of time we attach ourselves to that because that's an objective metric of, "Oh, I got this and this time on this," or "I squatted this much." And I've kind of been through that throughout my life of chasing fitness goals. But I am now more curious about setting goals and then going through the process of, what is this goal going to make me become as a person, right? So thinking of your life of in chunks like that, of like, it's not just success or failure. Did this happen? Did this not happen? It's, who did you have to become to get this thing? And maybe there's a time to sprint for certain goals, but you have to realize what that's going to detract from in other aspects of your life, whether that's relationships, family time, all of those things have to be considered. And so I think that's the challenge ultimately, is balancing the time commitment with life energy and all the things that you could be doing, but for this thing that you decided to pursue on a whim, or whatever that motivation was. So it's always a continual process of learning who you are and who you can become through hard endeavors. And I think the Ironman taught me a lot about myself. And I was at an interesting stage where I was, working 2 different part-time jobs and living at home, because this was just kind of right after COVID. And I had graduated pretty recently from physical therapy school. So that was the ideal time in my life to do it. And when I had a friend, classmate, text me at the beginning of 2021, like, is this going to be the year that we do it? Because he wanted also to do an Ironman. And so when I got that text, I was like, this is the universe telling me this is the time to do it. So it ended up being, really well planned, and that I had the time, because I didn't have the stress of taking care of a wife and kid and mortgage and all those other things that can hinder a lot of people. So I was very fortunate to do it when I did it.
Awesome. You started the company Triumfit Challenge. Can you explain what it is?
100%. Yeah. There's basically two different factions of Triumphit. There's the Triumphit Champions League and there's the Triumphit Charity Challenge events. And so it started in 2024. I work for the military, so I get all the federal holidays off. And in the way my brain works is I'm always just thinking about ways that I could torture myself in certain aspects. I'm like, why do we just get these days of rest, right? What's actually happening here? And I've always been a fan of history. I think I got that legacy from my father, who's big into sports history and Motown and music and all that kind of stuff as well. So I was sitting home one day from one of these holidays, and it's like, what is the meaning behind this day? Why do we get this day of rest? Somebody had to sacrifice, somebody had to die to get us this day of rest. And what does that mean? And how can I honor that legacy through something that I love? And what I happen to love is fitness. And so it started with Martin Luther King and doing some research on who he was and exactly his legacy on this planet. And he had done a 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in the 60s, 1965, for the Voting Rights Act. And so I thought, I got the great idea of, what if I honored Martin Luther King by doing a 54-mile, at the time it was a backyard ultra. So I was doing the same 3-mile loop, multiple times, as many times as I could that day. And I ended up doing 54 miles. And then I had the idea of, maybe to make it slightly easier and more sustainable, I could do a couple different divisions, like a gold division and a silver division. And so the gold division is a 54-mile run/walk in 54 hours, so about 2 days plus. And then the silver division is a 54-mile bike in 5.4 hours. And so that was the first event. And basically everything from Martin Luther King through Veterans Day is a different tribute, a different historical legacy, and a different financial donation to a relevant organization. And so that's the Triumphit Charity Challenge events. Basically, people buy entry tickets. You show up, you do the event, whether virtual or in person with other individuals. And then I donate half the profits to a relevant organization, and you'll become a registered Triumphit athlete. And I keep a database of what your finishing time was, so you can track your fitness year after year. So that's how that system works. There's 7 events every year. And then the Triumphit Champions League is for individuals that want more individualized coaching, whether that's through one-on-one calls with me, through group Zoom calls throughout the week, or just through a private Discord channel. So there's a competitor tier, which is the Discord group. There's the Conqueror tier, which is the Zoom calls, group Zoom calls. And then the champion tier is one-on-one calls with me during the week. So that is the other portion that I'm trying to get to kind of sustain, replace the income of what I'm doing as a physical therapist and make it more sustainable through, a monthly membership for individuals that really want to set these 90-day goals, which the Triumphit Champions League works in quarterly goals. So we're in quarter 3 right now. So the individual at the beginning of the quarter would select what they want to accomplish in the fitness world by the next 90 days. So I want to run a 5K under this time, or I want to XYZ, whatever that is. And then there's a daily check-in. I have a spreadsheet tracker, basically, that everyone checks off every day. And then there's a 30 and 60-day milestone progress tracker. And then ultimately that 90-day is like the success or fail. Like, did you get to the goal or not? And it's just a way to build that accountability in, and the network effect of having people that are also striving to push themselves further through this Discord group as well. So I'm trying to get that. There's just the very beginning, the first cohort that I've done. And so I'm kind of learning and iterating that as I go. But I think that's the ultimate way to replace the income, and then have the charity challenge events be more of the community building, doing hard things, and doing more of the social aspect of fitness as well than just the individual fitness pursuits. So those are the two wings of Triumphit and what I'm trying to build slowly. And I do some other stuff, fitness segments, and I write, spoken word poetry, which I want to turn into a book relating to different athletes and human achievement. It's a section I do every Friday. But so other than writing a book and those two things, that's essentially what I'm trying to do with Triumphit, is turn fitness and philanthropy into a high stakes game and make it sustainable for people to do and to give back at the same time.
So you're trying to most likely just bring people together and then let them challenge themselves, and then maybe someone will want to compete against each other to see
Sure.
who can be.
Yeah. I think ultimately, like I said, it's you competing against yourself. But
Yeah.
I think that if that could, blossom into something further down the line where there's like dueling or something like, oh, I bet you all hit my numbers better. I don't know. There could be something there. And that was one idea that I played with early on with Triumfit. Was like every month is a new fitness competition. There's like little clues to what the thing would be, and then people compete and post their time. So I've kind of thought about different things that maybe one day, once I have a bigger audience and reach, that I can pull off, that might be kind of fun side quests or something like
Yeah.
that. But at the moment, yeah, I guess the other unique thing about the Champions League and the cohorts is that every 90 days, I want to build in the goal with a specific stake related to it. So there's some kind of stakes. So there's, if you succeed, you're going to do something, and if you fail, you're going to do something else, right? So the stakes that I placed on my challenge, which this one is a specific 5K time. I like to do a 5 kilometer run in under 19 minutes. So it's a 6:07 minute mile pace. And if I succeed at that, in honor of Triumfit being about fitness and philanthropy, I will donate $250 to GiveDirectly.org, which is a global organization trying to basically end food insecurity and housing insecurity and across the world. So you can look them up, GiveDirectly.org. And then if I fail, the negative incentive, if I fail my goal, is that I have to buy a packet of cigarettes and smoke one on camera. So I'm a big health nut. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. So if I fail at my 5K time, then I have to buy a pack of cigarettes, sport big tobacco, kind of the big enemies of the world, and then smoke a cigarette on camera. So that's kind of a fun, unique twist to goal setting, is that it's, there's a way to give back. Like if I do succeed at this task, I'm going to help support other people in the world through a profitable, through a philanthropic donation. And so now this becomes less, because fitness can become very selfish. Oh, I want to hit a 305-pound bench press. It's like, okay, great. So you did the bench press. How did you benefit anybody else in the world when you got there? You probably didn't. You just spent a lot of time in the gym, and then you neglected a lot of different relationships. And cool, you can squat or bench XYZ arbitrary number. So I kind of wanted to not just have my fitness goals be about myself. I wanted to either succeed or fail, and then have that success or failure either benefit or motivate me to benefit somebody else through, a donation to Give Directly Now, who's my kind of main charity on the webs, my business. So I think that's what I'm really trying to do, is change this idea of, ooh, what's your mile time, and obsessing over our mile times, but being about more like, what is your impact on the world? How are you helping other people? And can you combine your fitness with philanthropy in some way? I think if we can just, we're so lucky in the first world and in America to have the luxury to work out and go to the gym for 2 hours a day, if you have the inclination to do it. And in other parts of the world, they have to work to bring water from the well 5 miles down at the village and haul water to home. So that's their workout. They don't get to go to the gym. Their gym is survival, right? So I think trying to broaden that mindset of, how can fitness benefit the world and not just ourselves? Because I've had that same clash in my own history of feeling selfish by being in the gym too long. And so now I'm trying to get a tribe of individuals through Triumphit that are now about prioritizing not just fitness, but philanthropy, giving back, and seeing the world prosper in some way other than just with their bench and just having six pack, abs, what that does, right? Because it doesn't do a whole lot for other people.
I love that idea of just adding, like, making it more about legacy and purpose
Mm-hmm.
than just about yourself at times.
Right. 100. I'm a big purpose driven person, I think. And that's what I want the ultimate mission of Triumphit to be, is how can I turn these things into games, and turn these things that are difficult into, community events, and finding ways to benefit others. Because tell you, if I don't want to, there's days that I don't want to get on the tracker, get on the treadmill, but I think if it's for a bigger reason, a bigger cause, then it's something I could be motivated to do.
And then the community aspect of it too will get more people, for more accountability. If somebody else is doing it, you're like, oh man, I got to show it because they're doing it, to hold me kind of accountable.
Yeah, 100%. This is why, the things like the Murph workout, which is another Triumphant challenge, I have a twist on it, but the Murph workout, in honor of Michael P. Murphy, who passed away in Afghanistan in 2005. So every CrossFit gym across the world, essentially, and Memorial Day we'll do the Murph workout, which is pull-ups, push-ups, squats, and a mile run on either end of it. So I want Triumfit to become essentially that, where there's a community of individuals all across the nation, because these are all essentially American holidays, right? So I would have to adapt these challenges for different countries and based on their holidays one day. But if it could just become a nationwide thing, that would be amazing. Tremendous success for myself. But you're absolutely right. I do want to see, the community attempt these things at some point, and I think it pushes us all farther if you could go with community. They say you go faster alone, but you go farther together. So I really believe in that message.
I do too. What is IKIGAI?
IKIDA.
GAI.
Whoa. What's the context?
Oh, this was something you had Ikiga or Ikigai?
Oh, Ikigai.
Ikigai.
Ikigai. Very cool. That's a throwback. Yeah. Ikigai is the art of living a meaningful life. It comes from a Japanese word. I'm obsessed, not quite as obsessed as some people where they learn Japanese and they're all into anime, but I do have a very fond affinity for, if I could have been born in any culture, I wish it was 1400s, samurai era Japan. I think that would be the coolest thing ever. Because I write spoken word poetry, so the idea of, by day you're a samurai and you write, these haikus, beautiful haikus and poetry, and you tend your garden, and then at night you just go around offing people and cutting heads off and jumping off of roofs and stabbing people with katanas. I think that's the coolest lifestyle ever, and I wish I could have just been Japanese 600 years ago. That would have been dope. But so that phrase ikigai is, again, art of a meaningful life, and it's the combination of several different factors: your profession, your passion, what you're good at, what the world will pay you to do, and all these different things kind of is a Venn diagram of what you should be doing. And so I think some of my passions obviously is community building and designing challenges that get people out of their comfort zone. And then what I want to get paid for is helping people with their fitness to feel, you know I'm very fortunate to feel the way I do because I've done a lot of work, to be here. I work out every day. I'm very consistent, right? So it's not like there's a lot that's in my control and a hell of a lot more that's not, being born where I was, to parents that I was, and just being in a healthy body. But once you have that foundation, there's a lot that you can do to influence that. And so I want to help other people feel the way I do, where I feel great to move in my body and do these things, right? So I feel like that's a big passion of mine as well. So Ikigai is the Venn diagram of where those different concentric circles, overlap, and what your profession and calling and career and mission and all these things, are passion, what they should be. And so I've written out one on my Instagram, Triumfit Challenge, and I think it's a good thought experiment for everybody to do about living with intention. I think so much of what I'm trying to do is live with intention and not just let life kind of pass me by and have every day be the same, in a sense, right? So try to take on that mission of being the architect of your own life and what that looks like. So that's Ikigai in a nutshell.
I love it. I think so many people are missing out on their true purpose and true calling in life because they don't know any. They're not self-aware enough.
Mm. What do you do to cultivate self-awareness? Is there anything in your life?
I do a lot of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And had to do at different stages, do a lot of just self-reflection, being aware enough of what I'm good at, what my strengths are, weaknesses, get clarity on what I really truly want. And then what I recommend is just go develop skills. Go pursue what you think you're supposed to do and develop the skills along the way. And a lot of times you might be redirected to something else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's a big thing to learn, is just the beginner mindset and being okay with not knowing, and to be, the odd man out, essentially, of feeling uncomfortable, right? Because if you feel uncomfortable, you're probably in the right space, and
Yeah.
you want to be, for lack of a better term, the dumbest person in the room. That means you're in the right room, essentially,
Yeah.
because there's other people that are better than you at this thing, and you can learn so much from those other people. So if you're always the smartest person in the room or the best at anything that you're doing, you probably need a bigger, pond to play in, right? If you're winning every single
Yeah.
tournament you do, or if you're achieving every single goal you set, then you're probably not as ambitious as you could be. So there's a fine line of, I'm not sure what that percent should be, but maybe around 70% of your big scary goals should be actually accomplished, and that's probably a great metric to hit. But yeah, if you're 100% or 0%, that's not ideal in either direction.
Yeah. So, what is your opinion on consistency versus intensity?
Huge fan of consistency. I've been doing a sprint high intensity interval training streak going since November of 24. So yeah, my 271 or so days in. Initially set the idea of doing 1,000 days of sprint interval training, essentially, and so I'm a quarter of the way essentially to that goal. I think I'm going to keep it up just because it's a fun thing to do every day. Even though this last Tuesday I was sick with a stomach bug, and so the good thing about sprinting is that max effort is relative. So your max effort on certain days is your max effort, is better or worse than other days, right? So I just did jump squats, with dumbbells in my hand. But when you're sick like that, just doing max, height jumping is essentially all you can do, right? So I do have the challenge that I set to myself to do 1,000 straight days of this sprint interval training, which is essentially just 3 20-second sprints, max effort, and then a 2-minute rest in between each. And so that could be any modality. It could be a cardio bike. It could be a row erg, a ski erg, a med ball slam. It could be any modality, which is good because then it limits injury likelihood. But again, it's not this ambitious goal of I'm going to do 2 hours of lifting every day. I'm going to run a half marathon every day for a year. It's so some of those are very great sounding on paper, and then people die off and they don't do it, 2 weeks into the challenge or whatever it is, right? It's the same problem with New Year's resolutions. We get very ambitious on January 1st, and then we lose steam by about mid-February, it looks like, so in the research. So I'm a bigger fan of consistency. I think if you show up every day and put in the effort, whatever that effort might look like, rather than just waiting for perfection. I've been, tied down by the perfectionist mindset for 30 years plus of my life. And it really wasn't until you start a business and try to walk down the entrepreneurial path that you realize there's no perfect time for anything in life. It's just going to be bumping and, stumbling in the dark through thick and thin, and trying to put one foot in front of the next and build the plane as you go. So that's really what Triumfit has taught me since 2024 when I started it, is that there's a skill set that I don't know that I need right now. Like you were just talking about, there's some skill set that I'm not even cognitive that I'm going to need to make Triumphant become what I want it to become. And that's kind of scary, but that is what it is. And when that time comes and that bridge, needs to be crossed, I'll try to learn that skill. I'll try to outsource the skill and then proceed on the bridge, somewhere or another. But the idea of having this perfect Golden Gate Bridge on day one is very unrealistic, and I think just stumbling in the darkness is it's nerve wracking, but it's also exciting, and the consistency of just doing the thing every day is what matters, not doing it perfectly.
Exactly. Why do you think most people fail then, like when they set their New Year's resolutions and can't see it through past like month 2 or 3?
I think it's the boring middle. It's the tyranny of the boring middle. And that's why I've done a lot of different goal setting, and I've been in a lot of programs, and I've read a lot of books and productivity and mindset and all these things. And I've been on both ends of the spectrum where I've done in 2019, the entire year essentially I was doing 30-day goals. And based on some research that, certain research would say about 21 days is the time it takes to form a habit. I've seen 66 days as well, but if you go off the 21 days, then 30 days is a little bit of a cushion, and it's, you could break it into monthly goals. So every month I was doing a different goal in 2019. It became fairly chaotic, and you're trying to learn different skills every month, and it was a lot to take on, the plate for that given time. So the 30-day goal is exciting because it's very short and it's hard to give up because you only have 30 days, but it's a little bit stressful and chaotic. I've done obviously the New Year's resolutions where you do 12 months, and it sounds great. You chart the course, you're so excited in January, and then There's a long, boring middle phase, which is when most people quit. And then I've now kind of settled into the quarterly goals. I think a lot of businesses operate in quarterly goals for specific reasons as well, because 90 days, again, is past that upper limit of habit change, which is around 66 days. I read the 5-hour club, or the 5 a.m. club, sorry, where I got that 66 days is what I'm pulling from. And so that 90 days is a good interval where you have this first month where you're all excited. The first 30 days, you're gung ho, you're running more than ever. You want to get the step count up, whatever the goal is. And the last 30 days, 60 to 90, is also exciting because you're at the end. Like, you want to see how you're going to wrap up the milestone, right? And so you only have this 30-day boring middle. That's the difficult part of a 90-day goal. And so I think you can accomplish more in 90 days, obviously, than you can in 30 days. And there's more of a chance to get back on the horse if you do fall off, versus if you fail your New Year's resolution in February, you're done. You've already failed the entire year. So now you have 9-10 months to be like, well, I guess I got to wait till 2026 or whatever, 2027 to do the next goal. It's like, well, you just wasted 10 months, right? So that's not great. But if you fail, in Q1 in February, then you have whatever, another month and a half, and then you're going to get into Q2, and then you have a whole new chance to start a fitness goal. So I've really settled into this idea of the 90-day goal being a very solid amount of window of time to learn a skill, to push yourself. You have a good, exciting 30 days, a good, exciting end the last 30 days, and that boring middle is not that difficult, and just that middle ground. So I think that's where I've kind of found the sweet spot with goal setting, and why Champions League that I run is in 90-day increments for that reason.
What is the most underutilized resource every city has?
A library. Very easy answer. I print a lot of things, at libraries, flyers that I bring to networking events. I think just libraries are just slept on. Like, you could check out books. I have a Libby and Overcast where you can just download Kindle books now as well, because I have a Kindle because I'm a millennial, right? So that's awesome. And you can get all access to free books. You can just put them all in your little holding selection. So people are sleeping on libraries, man. It's crazy, but you could do a lot. Sometimes they have tool libraries where you can check out tools for free, or there's a discovery pass that you can go to, national parks and all these different things, or local state parks, I suppose, with the discovery pass that you can check out from the library. So that's a good use of tax dollars. Most things aren't. Libraries are. You can print stuff out. There's events. You can learn new skills, and it's a very underutilized thing that people should use more of. Outside of that, I would say AI, ChatGPT. I think take advantage of the AI atmosphere that we live in now. Some people are very anti-AI, but your job is not going to be replaced by robots. Your job is going to be replaced by a human better utilizing AI than you were. So libraries and AI, you need to get on those two things in 2020 for sure.
Man, that's the first time I've had somebody bring up a library. I don't even think I've been to mine in a couple of years.
Go check it out. I'm telling you, it's slept on for sure. There's always events and cool things happening at libraries. Yeah, that's a big one.
What is something you're currently hyped for?
Oh, I love that question. I do like asking people that. Gets them to light up. This is kind of a big 3-week stretch for me. Because like I said, 2 days ago, I had a jiu-jitsu tournament. So, intermediate level, no-gi tournament. So essentially blue belts, but, that was fun. And then, this next Saturday, I have a trail ultra run. So this is near Mount Rainier in Washington. It's a 50K. So the first ultra that I've done, anything over a marathon is an ultra. So that's a 30-mile race, which has a decent amount of elevation gain and loss. So that'll be exciting. And then I'm hyped for the week after that, August 3rd, this thing called Stadium Unleashed. So there's a famous high school in Tacoma, Stadium High, and that's where 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger was filmed. And there's amazing view of the Puget Sound outside, and there's a race there every year where you do a full run up and down the stairs, the entire bowl. So my goal is to do about 12 minutes or so, and place pretty high in my age bracket. So those are the next 2 weeks. So there's essentially always something on the calendar I'm looking forward to. And then the next Triumfit challenge is in August. It's to commemorate Women's Equality Day, which is August 26th. And it's to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment, which is passed or officially certified in 1920. And I'm doing a 19 rounds of 20 kettlebell swings in honor of 1920. And it's a workout that's 4 times. So that's a slightly different thing. It's a TFC, a Triumfit fitness contest where if you beat my time, then I'll give you a free spot in the Champions League. So it's a way to give back and to raffle off spots in the league if people compete and post their time on social media, tag me in it and all that, and they beat my time. So that's August, but there's always something on the calendar that I'm hyped for. So I do love that question. I think we all need that thing because if you just kind of go through life unintentionally, like I said, it is a very difficult thing. So it's kind of hard to see. But back here, there's actually a calendar, a 4-month planner, and every like major event I have highlighted on my giant calendar of things that I want to do. And it's really cool. So that motivates me is seeing it in paper, signing up for an event, and just having something to train for and to look forward to. Because I've gone through life, kind of wandering aimlessly and, gone through depression of like, well, I don't have another event to do. And, all these kind of things. So maybe that's not the greatest side of my own mental stability where it's like I have to have something to look forward to or else I can't just intrinsically enjoy myself. And that's probably a sign of immaturity. But yeah, it's kind of like, a lot of runners that get the kind of depression after a race and they just sign up for the next race immediately and not even thinking about it. So I kind of have a little bit of that syndrome going on, but it's been working and it's fun. And now with Triumfit, I do those 7 charity challenges and 5 fitness contests every year now. So every month there's a new thing that I'm doing with Triumphit. And so, it's a little chaotic. And my biggest problem is I'm not focused enough because I have so many things that I'm doing. I'm writing this book week by week, do the charity challenges, and I'm trying to do the fitness accountability coaching through Champions League. So all the advice and really good advice is to focus, prioritize, do one thing, do it really well. Alex Hormozy, all these people kind of tell you this. And I'm still in that shiny object syndrome entrepreneurial phase where it all sounds cool. And I think I've kind of narrowed it down to the things that I want to do because I think the Champions League through affiliate can kind of get the charity challenges events going as well. Because if you get people to sign up for the charity challenge events, you'll get a percent of the money, the sales, right? Because each charity challenge event is $50. And I'm committing to donate 50% of the profits to relevant organizations. So then I have 50% to deal with, to work with. And so people get other people to sign up through their affiliate code, then they can get money to offset their Champions League membership dues and all that. So I think there's a way that this is going to work eventually if I just, spin it up enough and really, I don't love sales. I'm not good at sales and pushing agendas and all that, but it is such a life skill. So doing podcasts and going to networking and selling yourself and what you're trying to do, I think is a very useful skill. But not everybody is as motivated by pursuing fitness goals as I am. So it's not everybody's thing, but I would love to see it thrive and to have that to work out one day.
Man, I'll have to give it to you running up and down steps for
Exactly. It's 1,600 something steps, I want to say. So yeah, it takes a really great time is like 10 minutes. I think that's what some people are doing, but anything under 15, I think is pretty solid effort. So
yeah.
I'll see how it goes. I'm in the 30 to 40 age bracket, I guess. I'm 33. So yeah, I'm real excited. There's always something I'm looking forward to doing. I like seeing my limits and pushing myself. That gets me going. I feel alive, and especially with jiu-jitsu, entering tournaments like that, because there's the discipline of you have to cut weight, and so even just to show up and make it, I think you're already like, okay, I did this hard thing. I didn't eat cookies for a week. That's pretty impressive. So just to get to the stage, and then to see how your skills stack up against somebody else's training style is really interesting as well. I lost in the finals, so I got a silver medal. And I went up against this guy who was a pretty good wrestler. He wrestled, I guess, 2 years in college, club in college. And so he beat me by points. He didn't submit me, but he was probably better than me. If we went 10 times, he probably beats me 6 or 7. So I, tip the hat to him, and I'll try to come back stronger. I think there's 3 tournaments every year, April, July, and October. I'll be out of town for the October one, but I'll come back for the Revolution, April, July, and October of 2026 and try to hold it down at that point. That'd be the goal.
Awesome. I love how you keep testing yourself.
Yeah.
So you previously had a podcast. Can you explain what it was about?
Yeah, I'm the king of starting and ending podcasts for some reason. It's kind of weird. So I think I kind of like it now that I'm on Podmatch and I do, more guest podcasting than hosting. But I've had three actually in my life. The first one, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but the
I think
first
it was
one,
the first one you had where you went out around talking to people.
yeah, Tyler talks to strangers. Yeah. So that was a fun hobby that I was doing in the interim of like spring break, summer break in grad school. Because we're always constantly told, don't talk to strangers. That's the biggest thing. Don't talk to strangers, stranger danger, yada, yada. And I wanted to challenge that narrative. And I've always been curious by people's stories. And I think doing some solo travel in Europe and staying at hostels and making, great friendships in the first week of knowing somebody, when you're studying abroad or something, I think is a really bonding experience. So I wanted to start this podcast where I just went up to people and I was, my name is Tyler. I'm starting this podcast where I interview random strangers. I ask, fun questions, would you rather questions, deep questions, and, would you want to be on? It takes like 10, 15 minutes. And you'd be surprised the amount of things that people will tell you, within 10 minutes of knowing them, their biggest fears or the last time they cried in public or, what their divorce taught them about life. And I think people are willing to open up, more and more. That was pre-COVID, and the world did kind of change during COVID. So I don't do it as much now. But that was the first podcast, and it was a way to get me out of my comfort zone. I had been very introverted throughout most of my life, and so as a way to talk to girls and talk to individuals, and I felt way more comfortable if I had a mic in front of me. So that was really cool, and it taught me a lot about how I could become a better conversationalist and how to listen better. And I think there's so many skills that you have to learn that are very useful in trying to host a podcast and asking appropriate questions. And I think that's a skill set that you have because clearly you've done your research on pulling up the stuff like Ikigai and the podcast itself and all these things. So I think it's a great life skill to have. And I'm glad that I did start with Tyler Talks to Strangers. Since then, I've started another one in grad school where I was doing it was 2-5 physios. So it was a physical therapy and financial independence podcast. So about money and being a new grad physical therapist and that kind of thing. And then I also started, the alumni with another classmate from high school. It was about, we were trying to bring on old classmates from 14 years after about, where did you think you were going to be on graduation day? Where are you now? And what's the story and the, how you got to where, or what's the bridge between those two time points and what did you learn in the interim. So we did a little bit of the alumni podcast. We kind of, again, I started and stopped a lot of different things, mostly because Triumfit was picking up at that time and that was eating a lot of my time. And so it was hard to constantly reach out to old high school alumni and get them back on the podcast. But me and Jim might at some point bring that podcast back. But yeah, I think Triumphant is just taking a lot of time, and it's been good because it's a passion project, and I don't have to get rich overnight because of this thing. That's not really the goal. I would love to, like I said, replace my income, have a lifestyle business where I can get paid to work out, do fitness, and help people achieve their fitness goals. I think that's a really cool idea, and kind of work for yourself. So that's the goal. Try and fit. I don't want to become the next Jeff Bezos or anything like that. I just want to be able to have some independence, to see a legacy and impact in the world, and to live comfortably off of that. I think that'd be really cool to have created something that wasn't just a preset path. Like I've kind of I've chased what everyone else thought I should do for so long. I've done physical therapy. I got the doctorate degree, all these things, and it's great. I don't regret all those things for a second because it led me to where I am. But I think it's just there's something cool about like, oh, I created this thing out of my brain and I live off of that. Like that's insane. That's so cool. Like I had this idea and I turned it into reality. Like kicking and screaming, I turned this thing into my dream and a reality of what
Yeah.
Triumphant can become. Right. So I just think that's really meaningful. And I can keep doing physical therapy for the next 40 years and helping, a certain amount of people. But I don't think I would touch the world because I wouldn't if I was just in one city doing physical therapy and rehabbing injuries for the rest of my life. I couldn't have a bigger impact in this broader scale world than just doing that. So ultimately, that's what I'd like to do and what I'm trying to strive for every single day when I'm here.
I love it. I love that idea of the podcast you did. I mean, that definitely had to take you stepping out of your comfort zone to go to approach strangers.
100%. It was a great learning experience. Yeah.
What are your short-term and long-term goals
Ooh, great question. Short-term goals in terms of is this for Triumphit or for myself?
for yourself?
For myself, so in the Champions League, my goal for the 90 days was, like I said, to do a sub 19 5K. So a bit more running related. Again, I don't really love running that much, but I had a friend, Gideon, who used to run in high school, and we do a weekly Track Tuesday workout together on base. And so I don't know, he kind of floated the idea of a sub 19 5K out there. And I flinched at the first. I was like, I've trained for a sub 5 minute mile back in 2023, and I knew the effort that went and took the life that took from me because it was very difficult. I mean, just so hard. Like the training and the lung capacity that takes, and like I just knew what would go into it. And so initially I kind of flinched when Gideon said that. But I think I realized when I reflected on that more and more, like, again, if you're kind of hesitant to do something, it's probably the right way to go. Like if you're fearful of that thing, maybe it's time to do that again. So maybe I could run it back and to do this running goal. So that's kind of what I'm working towards now. I try and do three runs a week. I don't like running more than 3 days a week. I do a track workout, a tempo workout, and then a long run. So hopefully I can accomplish the goal with that. I'm not trying to make running, my whole life and my whole personality, but that's my personal goal right now. For Triumfit, my goal was to get 100 people to do a charity challenge event. So I have 2 more left. I have September 11th in honor of the 911 tower attacks, Twin Tower attacks, and then I have a Veterans Day event. And I've got a lot of spots to go, like 80 spots to go for that. So that was the initial goal in 2025, 100 people to sign up. So depending on how large your podcast audience is, that'd be great. Sign up because it can be done virtually. You don't have to be in Tacoma. You could be anywhere in the world. So that's the goal for business, and the personal goal is a run related goal at a certain time.
Awesome. What is one book you would recommend for personal development or mindset?
I would say the book that really sparked my interest in entrepreneurship was the book by Noah Kagan, $1 Million Weekend, MDW. And I think that's just a really practical book to start something from nothing, right? Very kind of, there's a checklist in it. I'm a big checklist guy. And so he has a whole like every week checklist of doing entrepreneurial things. So $1 Million Weekend, Noah Kagan was a very accessible book. And then specific to personal development, oh, that's a great one. That is an amazing one. I think a big one that I've read recently would be Sahil Bloom, 4 Types of Wealth. That was a very good book, New York Times bestseller. He's a pretty big Twitter presence, I suppose. But Sahil Bloom, I listen to his newsletter, read his newsletter every week. So that one was good. That's essentially, again, where I got the idea of Ikigai. I'd heard it previously, but he reiterates that in his book, 4 Types of Wealth, about Ikigai and time. So there's financial wealth, there's physical wealth, there's financial wealth, and there's time wealth. I think were the 4 in his book. So that was a great one that came out earlier this year. But if there's anyone that's trying to do the entrepreneurial thing, I'd say $1 Million Weekend is probably the go-to.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you?
Yep. Best way to get a hold of me, I'd say I'm most active on Instagram. So that would be Triumfit_challenge. So TRIUMFIT_challenge. So that's a play on the word triumphant fitness challenge. So to triumph is to be victorious in a contest or some meaningful task. So Triumfit challenge at Instagram is my easiest way to find me. My website is triumphitchallenge.com. My email is triumphitchallenge@gmail.com. So those are the best ways to find me, to see what I'm about and what I'm trying to promote into the world here.
Awesome. I'll put those in the show notes too for you.
Cool.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Man, that was a deep dive into the things that excite me, man. So I thought you did a really good job, and I was just happy to be here. I appreciate your time for talking to me and for bringing me through the fire on this podcast.
I
So
love it, man. You're a great guest.
thank you,
A lot of great energy.
thank you.
Okay, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
About overcoming adversity, I think the biggest advice would be, like we've reiterated, I would say one foot in front of the next. It's not going to be perfect from the outset, and that's totally normal, and that's the way it should be. I think there's a good quote that I saw this week is if the path is well illuminated before you, that means you're probably not on your own path in life, right? If every step is perfectly laid out, then it's probably not your story that you're writing. It's probably somebody else's for you. So it's not going to feel easy at the time, but I think if you're going through adversity, you got to understand that that's part of what you're signing up to do, is to feel that fear and move forward anyway. So that's what happens. The path will illuminate the longer you walk on it.
Great advice right there. Tyler, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. You have such great energy, and I
Thank you, Ryan.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your time 100%.
Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.